Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS Report. It is Wednesday, February the 26th. Hope everyone is having a fine Wednesday afternoon. Welcome in, Zach. How you doing today, bud?
Doing all right. Kind of an interesting little three-gamer here we got today. Pretty excited to break this one down because I think there's some nice edges we can find here tonight on the slate.
Yeah, I like this slate. It should be fun for, not all three-game slates are created equally. This one at least looks like it should be some fun. From a DFS standpoint, I didn't end up having the best night yesterday, which is kind of surprising because I felt like the show had a really strong night. A legacy game for Philadelphia won. I just didn't end up with enough of them. And there's some other spots, that we didn't get right. I think you were a little bit more interested in Columbus than I was. I ended up with 0 Columbus, and Columbus went absolutely nuts. That price tag, I still stand by the decision not to play them, but they went nuclear. And then Dallas 2 just absolutely flopped, which was a huge issue for me. At least Granlund was moved up to the top line midway through, and he picked up a couple of helpers, but would have been nice to know that was going to be the case before the game. Anyways, let's get into tonight's slate. Enough about yesterday. We got a 3-game slate, as we mentioned. We've got Linus Ullmark starting for the Ottawa Senators and Connor Hellebuyck going for the Winnipeg Jets. The Senators, I'm just going to get out in front of it here. As you see here on the line combination pages, they're very projected. Our source was actually, I'm surprised. I thought it would show up, but I said projected, like really, really projected was the source. Because Brady Tkachuk remains out. Shane Pinto remains out. Josh Norris remains out. They all skated yesterday, and they ran lines yesterday as if maybe they were all going to play, and then none of them are playing. So now we have literally no idea what the lines are going to look like tonight because not only are those guys still out, but they sent down 2 players, recalled 2 players, so we couldn't even use the lineup from last game to try to figure out what they were going to do tonight. And to make matters even worse, they're going 11 forwards, 7 defensemen. So I don't think it really matters. I think that kind of the top dogs from the Ottawa Senators tonight, maybe some of the top value forwards that could see additional ice time tonight, are the guys you're going to want to focus on because, the actual line combinations are super up in the air, but also probably going to fluctuate much throughout the game like they did the other night. So Nick is wondering, no morning skate for Ottawa. They did have an optional morning skate, so no lines during an optional morning skate because some guys took the option not to skate. So, yeah, we just have literally no idea. Luckily, it's the first game of the night. We'll get lines to you, obviously, tweeted out from the DFO Fantasy account. You can also join the DFO DFS Discord if you're looking for any additional information once the lineup is released. Let's get back to the goalies. We got Mackenzie Blackwood starting against his former team as the Avalanche host the New Jersey Devils. Will likely be going to be Jake Allen for the Devils. And then in the night game, we've got David Riddick likely to get the start for the LA Kings. It will be Kevin Lankinen for the Vancouver Canucks. Before we dive right in, listen to our guy, John. He says, like the like button for the fellas. Appreciate that, John. And yes, please smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Zach, let's get into it here. We've got Ottawa as plus 131 home underdogs in this game, minus 145 for the Winnipeg Jets. Basically, right when they made the call-ups this morning, I bet the Jets at minus 130. So feeling very happy about that, considering it is now moved all the way out to minus 145. The most recent update, still minus 145 at Pinnacle. Most books, though, minus 155. So matchups in this one, again, without really knowing what the Ottawa Senators lineup is going to look like, the matchups, honestly, I don't really give a shit about them in this game. Because there's nothing really to take from them. We have no idea what the lineup's going to look like. We have no idea what the matchups are going to look like. And based on the last game, which is where I took these matchups from, because that's the most similar lineup to what they're going to have tonight, the Senators didn't really give a shit about matchups either. It was kind of just a free-for-all. I think the one thing that we can kind of look at and say for certain tonight, I do think Ridley Gregg is probably going to see a lot of Mark Scheifele. Still not going to be able to take a ton from that information, but based on the current line combinations, that Ridley Gregg line is horrific defensively. So that obviously bodes well for Winnipeg 1. I don't think the matchups are really all that important for this game just because Winnipeg 1 seems to be pretty much matchup proof. They've done well against pretty much anybody. And the thing is that they just continue to be really reliant on that top power play and really good when they're on the power play. They're still the second best power play unit over the last 10 games, going up against the 11th ranked PK. They got the number 1 power play advantage on the slate tonight. I like Winnipeg 1 again tonight. I think that they'll have a fine time going up against the Senators at 5v5 in this one. I think obviously the power play is in a good spot as well. The one thing we can definitely look at in this game is just basically what the Senators have done recently in terms of a full team perspective, the team trends chart here, and they've been really bad. The second worst 5v5 defensive club on the slate tonight. The penalty kill has been one of the worst on the slate tonight as well. So really looks like a nice night to target these Winnipeg Jets. Zach, before I get to you, the other thing that was interesting, we talked about it the other night with the new dynamic pricing, is it kind of pigeonholed you into wanting to play Winnipeg 1 the other night, their price tag at just 20,000, and then Winnipeg 2, you've got Ehlers still up there at 6,500. I think he was 7K the other night, and then Perfetti was like 6,100, and he's down to 51. So you get a little bit of salary relief going down to Winnipeg 2, a lot more than you did the other night. And Winnipeg 2 was really buzzing in that game the other night, and I think that it gives me hope to going back to them tonight. I did end up playing a decent amount of them the other night. You had Vladislav Nemestikov get to the shot bonus, which is kind of surprising for him. Ehlers had 2 assists on Scheifele goals, which was kind of random, but that line looked really good. They had 16 shot attempts for, just 4 shot attempts against the Sharks. They had 0.73 expected goals generated at 5v5, which was double what, or nearly double what Winnipeg 1 did. So they looked really good in that game. You get a little bit more salary relief tonight, and Winnipeg 2, probably one of my favorite lines on the entire slate tonight, and they're projected for just 6.3 average ownership on that trio, where Winnipeg 1 up at 18.1%. Zach, I think you would agree with me that Winnipeg 1 still has the higher ceiling, obviously, but I really like the value you could get from Winnipeg 2 tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about that performance they had the other night. Just about we're on the brink of being able to win us a whole bunch of money. So, with them only being like 6% owned here tonight as a full stack, I have no issue getting up over the field on that number here tonight. Nick Ehlers continuing to be tremendous as of late over his last 20 games. 1.3 goals per hour, a great floor with 8.8 shots on goal per hour of ice time. That's the second highest mark on the Jets as a whole, or from their forward group, I should say, behind only Kyle Connor at 9.2 shots on goal per hour of ice time. So really productive in the minutes that they're having there. And the truth is like Nemestikov and Perfetti, like they're really finding ways to contribute offensively as of late too, both of them with 2.6 points per hour over their last 20 games, 6.5 shots on goal per hour for each of them as well. So this is a line that it really feels like they've got a really nice floor here as a full stack. And I think that's a really nice way to kind of build some lineups here tonight. You get yourself super different from the field. You can always mix in one of those guys off of Winnipeg 1 or Josh Morrissey to add a little bit of power play correlation there. With Nick Ehlers being on the top power play unit, that's definitely a route that I'm going to be going here tonight with my builds. But, I also don't really mind getting up and paying for the ownership with Winnipeg 1 here tonight. They're the second highest or second best line to target on the slate as a whole, projecting for 18% ownership here tonight. I have no problem meeting the field on that number there. I think what's interesting too is like Winnipeg 3 is also drawing a pretty fair amount of ownership as kind of one of these cheaper lines to target here on the slate tonight. $10,300 to full stack. These guys, they're seeing around 11% ownership, which is pretty much in line with what you're seeing from like Ottawa 1 here on the other side of this game.
Yeah, and I have no problem getting to Winnipeg 3. We talk about it. These lines are a little bit easier and more appealing to get to on these smaller slates because you don't need much from them to maybe pay off. And I think that obviously they're a line that people are looking at wanting to jam Colorado 1 in for obvious reasons, and Winnipeg 3 fits nicely with them at 10,300. I would have liked to see them a little bit lower owned because I do think I'm going to get to some Winnipeg 3 tonight, but at 11%, it starts to get a little bit scary. But yeah, obviously this is a line that, you bring up the line stats here. They've been every bit as good as the other 2 lines at 5v5 so far this season. Maybe, again, not scoring quite as much because they don't have the elite finishers as some of those other lines, but still generating 2.9 expected goals for, generating the most high danger chances. So they're getting looks, and, this is a pretty banged up Ottawa Senators team tonight. And I do think that it's hard to find a lot of value, and I think Winnipeg 3 certainly brings some of that value to the table. Without knowing the Senators lineup, it's going to be really difficult to be like, hey, target this line. But, with all the injury issues and all the guys absent from the lineup, I think it is pretty easy to just look at their stallions and their top guys like Stützle, like Giroux, like Batherson. You could probably even lump Greg and Perron into that mix. And you look at this lineup here, and it's probably a lineup in which they're going to have to rely very heavily and lean very heavily on that top 6 tonight. So, I do think that there's probably going to be some value that comes with, out of this Ottawa lineup. It's just going to be hard to say which line for sure is the one that you're going to want to play. But They're all probably going to play more minutes than they're used to. You've got Stützle at $6,400. You got Giroux at $5,200. And then if you go down to the second line, Perron just $4K, Ridley Gregg just $3,800. I think that they both represent pretty good value if they end up playing, 17, 18 minutes tonight. And then Drake Batherson, $5,500 feels like a nice price tag. So, don't really love the matchup for them. Obviously going up against Connor Hellebuck, really good Jets team that's just on a roll right now. But this top six is going to see additional ice time tonight, and they're all pretty affordable. I'm probably going to be, similar to the field here. It seems like the field is mostly mixing them in around 5 to 10%, and that's probably where I'll end up coming in. I got a lot more interest in some of these other teams tonight than I do the Senators, given how banged up this lineup is. But in the same breath, you're obviously, I think there's plenty to like about this blue line as well, right? You got Jake Sanderson playing extremely well. You got Thomas Chabot playing well. They do still have the second best power play advantage on the night. They somehow get nearly 4 power plays per game on home ice. They do go up against a Jets team that's pretty disciplined, but that's a pretty high number. The power play's been kind of middle of the road here. Does, again, face a tough task against the Jets, who are really, really quality. But I think that just given the kind of additional ice time that's available tonight for the Senators' top six, I think I'm going to mix them in for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Like you mentioned, it's kind of difficult to sit here and try and project how to do that. I think for me, like in my builds, before we really find out the lines, I think I'm most comfortable building around, 3 of their forwards here, and Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, and Drake Batherson. I mean, these are the 3 guys that are up on power play unit 1. Adam Gaudette, $2,700. You can mix him in too if you need some real cheap value. He is the center. So that does help things with lineup construction as a whole. But I think for me, Brock, like I'm probably just going to come in really over the field on both Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot. Your projections have them playing monster minutes here tonight. Monster minutes. 27 minutes for Sanderson, 26.5 for Chabot. They're the second and third best value plays on the slate in terms of the defenseman here. So I think for me, I think that's probably how I'm going to get most of my Ottawa exposure, and then hope that the offense, rolls through these guys in one way, shape, or form for whatever the Senators are looking to do out there tonight. The nice thing about both of these defensemen is they've been very, very productive. For Sanderson, 7 shots on goal and 5.7 blocks per hour over his last 20 games. Thomas Chabot, 6.3 shots, 4.1 blocked shots. I think that's kind of the way that I'm going to go here, and mix in some mini stacks or one-off pieces from the respective power play units and kind of go that way. I don't think there's a real need to jam in a whole lot of Ottawa here tonight. They're in a tough spot. They're down, multiple bodies here tonight, and going up against Connor Hellebuck is not an easy thing to do on a nightly basis. So I think that's kind of how I'm approaching the Senators here, at least early on, unless, something really jumps out in terms of lineup construction when they are released later.
Yeah, came out of the break with these injury concerns, right? Their first game, no Tkachuk, no Pinto, no Norris, and they lost 5-2 on home ice to the Montreal Canadiens. So obviously a bit of a tough loss there. And then I don't think that this is a great setup for them. And they're only meeting against the Jets this season. They lost 4-2. That night, Tim Stützle had a power play goal. Ridley Gregg had a power play goal. And then the Jets scored 4 unanswered. So wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of a similar type game tonight where maybe the Senators end up making some hay on the power play, but outside of that, they're in a very difficult matchup. Okay, Colorado and New Jersey, the Avs, 3.2 implied total, minus 144 home favorites. The Devils, 2.7 implied total, plus 130 road dogs. Matchups in this one going to be a little bit easier to actually take information from. This is the highest event game of the night. 51% of McKinnon's ice time is expected to come against the Jack Hughes line. Also going to see about 30% of their ice time against New Jersey 3. So yeah, that Jack Hughes line, very, very good offensive numbers, but they give up plenty at the other end of the ice. Colorado, since acquiring Martin Necas from the Hurricanes, Colorado 1 has been ridiculous, insane. I don't know what word you want to use to describe these numbers, but they're incredible. They are just so good. I do think you see here 34% of the ice time at 5v5 with Valeri Nichushkin returning to the lineup tonight. I think we could start to see that balance out a little bit, but man, this line's just so good. How do you take them off the ice? They've just been incredible. I do think that as a result, it's going to be a tough night for Jack Hughes' line, I would imagine, going up against this line all night long. I think that he's probably going to spend a good portion of this contest in his own end if these numbers have anything to do with it. McKinnon, look at these numbers defensively. That they just have the puck the entire time. So, obviously love Colorado one thing. They play a ton. They've been incredible together. I'm a bit surprised that they're coming in at just 25% owned. A lot of that has to do with Artturi Lehkonen at just 15%, but still, McKinnon 36, Netjazz 25. I mean, I'm going to be north of the field on both of those guys. It's just such a good spot. This Vancouver LA game looks pretty bleak. The Senators side looks pretty bleak. Like it's so easy to just get to Colorado and Winnipeg tonight and be super over the field on both of them, and because they're just by far and away the two best spots in my opinion. So love Colorado one night. Lehkonen still, I just actually was messaging with one of the Avalanche beats before the show just to verify the power play units tonight. Artturi Lehkonen will remain on power play 1 with Nichushkin back. Nichushkin will start on PP2 in his return. So fully correlated on the top power play unit. This is a power play that's had its struggles throughout the course of the season. Been better lately. They do run into a really solid PK tonight, but a lot of the penalty kills on tonight's slate are good. They all rank in the top half of the league. So, the Avs obviously tremendous talent. 5v5, they're going to be fine, and on the power play, they're going to get some opportunities tonight. So, given the matchup for Colorado 95.7 on the matchup score is outrageously good, and then these underlying metrics are insane. So let's just start with Colorado 1. How much Colorado 1 is too much tonight?
There is no limit to me, honestly. 100% I'm in your 20 max. Why not? Honestly, it could be a way to go if you want to take a super big stand here. They look like they're in just a great spot here tonight. Martin Necas has been incredible since he's arrived. 0.7 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 2.6 points, 7.1 shots on goal, finding ways to be productive. It feels like Nate Max really kind of woken it up here as well, right? Like, we were talking about him, earlier on this season, and I was like, man, the shot volume's kind of fallen off here. He's not quite scoring at the rates that he used to. Well, over his last 20 games, 11.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time. That volume has returned to form, and he's got 3 points per hour as well. So finding lots of ways to be productive in his minutes. So it's a great sign there. And then you couple it with the fact that, he's $8,500 right now. It's the same thing we talked about with McDavid and Draisaitl last night. You're never, ever going to find him this cheap. Unless this pricing sticks and they decide to keep him in the mid 8K range or up to 9K as the max or something like that. I think I'm going to be having a lot of Nathan McKinnon here in my lineups throughout the night. So this top line looks great. And honestly, I don't mind getting to Artturi Lehkonen over the field too. Projecting for just 15% ownership right now over his last 20 games, 1.3 goals per hour of ice time, 6.8 shots on goal per hour. He doesn't have a ton of volume, so his floor can be a little bit volatile, but playing up there on that unit, on the top power play as well, he's always a threat to score a couple of goals in a game, right? And over his last 10, 5 goals, 8 points, 2.5 shots on goal per game over that stretch as well. So he's finding ways to be productive. I got a lot of interest here in this top line for the Colorado Avalanche. The second line, do we maybe get a little bit interested there with Valeri Nichushkin returning from the IR here tonight? Coming in at 6K, he's projected for under 2% ownership right now.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if that ownership sticks, but I just want to go back to Colorado 1 for a second, because since Necas arrived, he's been unbelievable. McKinnon has just 2 goals in 10 games since Necas arrived. He's got averaging 4.9 shots on goal per game, though. He's shooting just 4.1%. So even as good as they've been, there's room to improve like exponentially. Like he could explode at any minute. $8,500. This line being 21,700 is absurd. It's going to be it's just way too easy to get to them. Artturi Lehkonen, you mentioned it. The floor is not amazing. Obviously, when you've got Necas shooting 3 times a game and McKinnon shooting 4.5 times a game, it doesn't leave a whole lot for Lehkonen, but still has averaged nearly 2.5 shots per game since Necas arrived. He's got 5 goals, 8 points in 10 games during that stretch. So he's been really solid. I absolutely have no issue getting over the field on him tonight at $6,200. And the fact that he's going to remain on power play 1 really solidified that for me. As for the second line, like that Milstad trio pretty much all season has, they went through a nice run early in the season, but for the most part, they haven't been great. The underlying metrics here are pretty meh. And what really concerns me is the matchup. They're probably going to see a lot of the Heischer line, still only projected for 33%. I don't mind getting to them just for the fact that they're outrageously low owned in what looks like still an okay spot. So yeah, like Nichushkin's an absolute boss at 6K. I think he's a great play. He's probably one-offing him more than anything, but Drouin and Middlestad are both really, really cheap as well. So just 13,700 to full stack. It's nice leverage off of that Colorado 1 chalk. If Colorado 2 ends up having the big game tonight, you're going to have a lot of leverage there. So yeah, I like getting to them quite a bit. I obviously don't think the ceiling or the matchup is quite as good, but the ownership makes it super easy to get to them. The price makes it super easy to get to them, and I'm interested. But they rank 12th for a reason. They really haven't been all that great, and we talked about it. Like, yeah, it's amazing how much the McKinnon line plays, but it doesn't leave a whole lot for the other three trios. So that's part of the issue. But again, at $13,700, it's a no-brainer. Just before we get to you here, Zach, for some final thoughts on the Avs, shout out to Kyle. Thanks, guys. Finished second in my contest yesterday. Thanks to you. So congratulations. Hopefully we can keep that stuff rolling tonight. So yeah, Zach, any final thoughts on Colorado before we get to the Devils?
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable mixing in some of this Colorado 2 line here. Jonathan Drouin, $4,300. I think that's a nice price point for him. Projected for 6.5% ownership. Over his last 20 games, 2 assists per hour of ice time. I think he's fine to mix into your Colorado 1 stacks. He's fairly cheap, and you get some correlation there on the top power play unit. We're still waiting for that top power play unit to kind of get their shit together here. So who knows? Maybe they can do so here tonight.
All right, the Devils side of things. You look at this Devils lineup and you're just like, man, this is a team that you feel is just making a splash at the trade deadline. Like they need 1, maybe 2 scoring wingers in that top 6. It feels like, Tomas Tatar, probably not the guy you want in your top 6 heading into the postseason. I think it limits their upside a little bit right now. They've been fine. The matchup's better for the Heischer line than it is the Hughes line, as I mentioned. I do think it's going to be a little difficult to get to that Hughes line a lot tonight. You look at the price tag at 16,900. It's not bad, obviously, but I just feel so much better about the ceiling of Colorado 1 and Winnipeg 1, and I do have a lot of concern that McKinnon line is just going to hem them in all night long. I have genuine concerns about that. You got Hughes just $1,000 cheaper than McKinnon. I think that McKinnon's a much better play. You got Bratt $5,900, $1,000 cheaper than Netchess. I think Netchess is a much better play. I just don't see myself getting to the field here at 22% Hughes or 15% New Jersey 1. I think more of my interest does come in that second line in the form of maybe a Heischer, Stefan Nation mini stack. At 10%, I think that the price tag is a little bit more affordable. The ownership is fine. So that's probably the route I'm going to go. As I mentioned, the matchup's a little bit better for them. They're going to see a lot more of the bottom 9 here of the Avs, which again, no slouches defensively. Actually, the second and third lines have struggled the way they're currently constructed. So pretty decent matchups there. We haven't seen a whole lot from New Jersey 2 with Tomas Tatar up there, but we know that Nation and Heischer have had success together so far this season. So again, not enamored with the Devils tonight, but I do think that second line is a little bit more interesting, and probably I'll end up over the field on New Jersey 2 and probably under the field on New Jersey 1. Before I get to you, Zach, just want to pull up their power play numbers here. 7th best power play over the last 10 games, going up against the 4th best PK tonight. They have the 4th best power play advantage overall, projected for the second, tied for the lowest amount of power play opportunities projected tonight. Avs extremely disciplined, just 2.3 times short-handed per game on home ice this year. What are you thinking here with New Jersey 1 and 2, Zach?
Yeah, I'll be definitely getting there tonight. I actually bet over 5.5 goals in this game. So I like there to be some offense here tonight. I'm comfortable getting to both New Jersey 1 and New Jersey 2 here on this slate tonight. It does feel a little tough getting there on that top line. But Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, they've been great, this season. They really have been. And Jesper Bratt specifically, interestingly enough, 10 games played against the Avalanche in his career, 4 goals and 13 points. So something about playing Colorado that he clearly likes. This game obviously going to be in Colorado tonight. So I don't mind getting there. I think the ownership that they're seeing is pretty fair, and probably where I'll be coming in on them too. I don't think there's a reason to go super, super heavy for them. You mentioned it's going to be a bit of a tougher time for that top line for the Devils with just how dominant Colorado 1 here has been. I think one thing that's kind of an interesting angle here is that third line as well. If you're looking to get yourself really, really different, I don't mind sprinkling in a little bit of Timo Meier and Dawson Mercer. I wrote up Mercer as a value play option here tonight on this slate. $4,700. He hasn't been great or anything like that as of late, but the matchup score is really, really good for them. They're going to be seeing a lot of their ice time going up against, or they're going to be seeing, a good chunk of their ice time going up against that middle six of Colorado. And that middle six has been absolutely terrible defensively. So there's an option. There's the opportunity there for them to score. One thing that I saw this on Twitter a couple of days ago from Todd Cordell, who writes about the New Jersey Devils. Still true to this day, Timo Meier does not have a 5-on-5 goal in 2025. 19 games played so far in 2025, 0 goals, and he's played the most minutes of any of the Devils forward at 5-on-5 this season. So kind of an interesting angle there. Maybe tonight's the night where he can find a way to break through and get a goal. 5 goals and 13 points in 22 games in his career against the Avalanche. The one thing that's still going for Meier, his shot volumes remain solid, 8 shots on goal per hour of ice time. So I think I'll be sprinkling in a little bit of that third line for the Devils too. Really not seeing much ownership their way, but an interesting way to kind of get yourself really different from the field tonight.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice contrarian play. They're not going to see much ownership at all. Meier, pretty expensive, still at $6,300, but as you mentioned, still plays a lot at 5v5. Don't mind that as a get different spot. The matchup does look pretty good. About 50%, exactly 50% of their ice time projected against that middle six. Worth mentioning, just to go back to Colorado 2 for a moment, that these two teams met only once so far this season. It was a 4-0 shutout win for the Avs that night. Casey Middlestad had 2 assists. Ross Colton was on that second line that night, had a goal. Lehkonen had a goal, and Valer Nichushkin had an assist in that one. So they kept the big dogs off the board. That was in New Jersey, though, where they were able to match up a little bit better, which flows well with our next question here from Eric. Is there a reason why Colorado 1 isn't going to face New Jersey 2? I thought they would put Heischer's line against the McKinnon line. In New Jersey, that would be the case, but the game is in Colorado tonight, so they control the matchups, and they're going to probably keep McKinnon away from Hischier as much as possible and really try to hem that Hughes line in and kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. Okay, let's get to the final game of the night. You've got the LA Kings and the Vancouver Canucks. LA is -176 home faves, 1+158 road underdogs for the Canucks. The Canucks, obviously, let's just bring it up here. Last 10 games, pretty lifeless at 5v5 in terms of generating any offense whatsoever. Shooting just 5.9%, but they continue to be really, really good defensively, and we know the Kings are really, really good defensively. So this game looks pretty bleak, all things considered. From a 5v5 standpoint, I bet the under in this game at just 5.5. I think that, let me just pull it up. The last I checked, it was like -130 for the under 5.5, which is crazy low. It's -142 under 5.5 right now. So not the best game script here for this one. Both teams very, very strong defensively. Worth mentioning, though, the Canucks could get Quinn Hughes back tonight. He will be a game time decision, but super low pace here. The Canucks really, really bad matchup scores. Obviously, we know that the Kings are quite good defensively. So Kevin Lankinen's played unbelievable. David Riddick gets the start for the Kings, so obviously that helps things a little bit for the Canucks. But I wrote about David Riddick as a streaming option for season-long fantasy today, and let me just pull it up. On home ice this year, he is 9-2-1 with a .215 goals against average and .908 save percentage. So Riddick's been much better on home ice where the Kings can kind of control the matchups a little bit more. So this game doesn't have a ton of my interest. It's interesting. We saw, who was it? Byfield, Kempe, and Fiala get put together on Monday, and they were unbelievable. That happened mid-game. But it looks like, based on the practice report today, that they're going to kind of go back to the classic Kings lineup that we've seen as of late with Turcotte, Kopitar, Kempe. But I said that night that you only see like 9-10 minutes for Turcotte, so they do a lot of kind of line shuffling, double shifting of guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some Fiala, Byfield, Kempe again tonight. They said it's always an option, so you might want to throw a Fiala, Byfield, Kempe stack together tonight, just in case they do put them together, because it's not going to be the case to start the game, but could certainly be the case to end the game. In terms of the matchups, you're going to see a lot of the Deneau line up against the Elias Pettersson line. You're going to see a lot of the Byfield line up against the Philip Heidel line. I just find it so difficult to build around the Vancouver Canucks, and I know you do as well. Elias Pettersson just does not look like the same player. I mean, it seems like after every single game, there is just something in the media, whether it's just a media member spouting off about what Pettersson looks like, or a member of the Canucks coaching staff saying something. It's just every night, it's just something's not clicking there, and the trade of JT Miller hasn't remedied it either. And then you got the second line. I think that second line is a little bit intriguing. Heidel's looks pretty good since arriving. We know that Joshua and Garland have pretty good chemistry going back to last year. It hasn't really worked so much this year. You got this third line, O'Connor, Suter, Besser. They draw, one of the worst matchups on the slate, but they are projected for 28% of the ice time. They've got the best underlying metrics. I want to try to talk myself into finding an avenue to get to the Canucks here, but I really always just end up with being like, I'll one-off Quinn Hughes if he plays, and that's probably it. How about you?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you whatsoever there. I have a hard time really getting to the Vancouver Canucks whatsoever on a general basis. Going to be really hard for me to get to them here going up against the teams. I mean, look at those defensive numbers for the LA Kings. Like, they have been so good defensively. You mentioned David Riddick, stronger numbers on home ice than on the road this season. Personally, I might be like maybe 15% on total ownership for Vancouver Canucks non-named Quinn Hughes tonight. I have a really hard time getting to really anybody here. I mean, if Hughes does play, like, I might have a little bit more interest. So, maybe I'll play some showdown lineups or something like that for this game later and mix some Canucks in that way. But I honestly don't know if I'm going to get to any of these forwards in my 20 max. You could probably talk me into a little bit of Philip Hedl. He's got good shot volume, 9.2 shots on goal per hour of ice time. The only problem is that they're projected to go up against the Kings second line, which is the best defensive line for the LA Kings. So I don't know, man. It feels pretty bleak for me getting to this Canucks side, as it usually does.
You want a pretty good stat I just stumbled upon. So who do you think the Canucks leader in points is over the last 10 games?
Oh, God.
Quinn Hughes, how many games do you think he's played?
2?
4. He's played 4 games in their last 10, and he still leads the team in points. He's actually tied with Philip Hronek, who basically would have no value if Hughes is back because he won't be on that power play unit. After that, Pius Suter has got 6 points, so he's the leading forward over the last 10 games. Jake DeBrusk is the leading goal scorer with 4. But yeah, there's just not a whole lot here from this team, man. Like, there's not a lot to like. DeBrusk has played better. Garland's solid. I'll probably mix them in, but it doesn't feel good. But I'm only even remotely considering them because it's a 3-game slate. And I just feel like I might have to find a way to get them in. If you take a look at the overall ranks here, Vancouver 3 grades out the best. So Suter, Besser, and O'Connor. But again, I don't feel great about that. Maybe DeBrusk at 4,500 as a one-off. Maybe DeBrusk, Pettersson. It's so hard to be like, yeah, let's play Elias Pettersson and feel good about that. It just hasn't been working. The coaching staff's coming out and calling him out and saying he's got to move his feet. He's not shooting. He has no confidence. How many shots on goal do you think that Elias Pettersson has in his last 6 games?
2.
4. He has not had a multi-shot game since January 31st. He has 4 shots on goal. 4 one-shot games in his last 6. That's it. It's ugly. It's really ugly. Okay, the King side of things. I mean, if the lines are as currently constructed, I think that it's still pretty smart to go back to LA2. It didn't really work the other night. It worked obviously great with Quentin Byfield, but he wasn't really able to drag Fiala and Laferriere with him because he was playing with Kempe and Fiala for most of that game. Fiala had an okay night. Laferriere did nothing. That line's been awesome. This third line of the Deneau line's been really, really good as of late as well. They had a nice night the other night. Their matchup's a little bit worse. They're going to see a little bit more of that Pettersson line, but shouldn't be too much of an issue, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think mixing in kind of a little bit of all 3 of these Kings lines is back in order again tonight. again, I think that I'll probably have a lot of builds still with Kempe, Fiala, and Byfield, just because I do think that there's a pretty good chance that line ends up back together. And obviously they looked superb together the other night. I wish they were together, because that would, again, we're really just trying to find an answer here from the Kings and just narrow it down for us to one line. And if that's the case, that's the line without question. I still feel like the line to target is probably the second line, as I've said for weeks now. So, if you want to play Laferriere, fine. I think he's still a strong play, but maybe the route is to just go with those Byfield, Fiala mini stacks. And then if they do end up shuffling the lines, you're not that concerned because you've got both of them anyway. So that's probably the route that I'll go, really focusing on Byfield and Fiala minis. Mix in some Laferriere, mix in some Kempe. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you there. That feels like the route to go for me. I'm probably going to sprinkle in some of this third line for the Kings as well. Fogle, Dano, and more. They've just been finding some really consistent offense here as of late, which is great to see, because we kind of been waiting for them to turn it on here. The offensive numbers are pretty solid. They grade out as the fifth best line to target overall on this slate tonight, seeing just like 15% ownership here. I don't mind getting there whatsoever. I'm comfortable doing that. I'll probably mix in a little bit of this top line, a little bit of Kopitar and Kempe. Who did Kopitar play with when that swap happened in the last game?
Let me see. I had it up a moment ago. Where did you go? Let's see. It was kind of a mixed bag. They were really kind of shuffling things around. So Kopitar spent most of his ice time with Laferriere and Trevor Lewis. It was kind of like it was mostly just Kopitar and Laferriere, and then kind of a mix of Lewis, Tanner Jeannot, Alex Turcotte for the most part. So less than ideal.
Yeah, doesn't necessarily feel the greatest building around that route there. But, the nice thing at the end of the day, too, you got Kopitar and Laferriere both on that top power play unit. So you get a little bit of correlation there that way. The only problem is that the Kings power play has been terrible, and the Canucks penalty kill has been excellent, even though they cannot seem to stay out of the penalty box. So who knows? Maybe this is the night where the Kings power play can break through if the Canucks take themselves to the box a million times like they seem to be doing as of late.
Yeah, and at least the Canucks have one thing going for them. The penalty kill has been really good. But yeah, I agree with you on LA3. They grade out really well. One of the best value options tonight for sure. I think you're going to see a lot of Colorado 1 LA3 builds just because it's pretty easy to get to. Fogle, good shot volume, more good shot volume to know. Not great shot volume, but he's able to kind of find it sometimes. And we've always been a fan of playing the Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore line forever. SMK5430 says Pedersen, Hattie incoming. Yeah, most likely. Okay.
Any final ticket if that happens?
Yeah. Any final thoughts on any of these games, on any of these forwards before we move on to the defensemen and goalies?
No, let's talk about these blue liners.
All righty, let's get to it. We've got, let's sort by value here as we do try to find some good cheap options. So both of us are quite interested in Seamus Casey tonight. $2,700, grades out really well, just 1% owned projected. So looks like a great value option. Concern with him is the lack of ice time, but really, really talented young defenseman, really strong offensive numbers in college, solid offensive numbers in the AHL, and he's found a way to put up points despite only playing, 13, 14, 15 minutes a night with New Jersey. So kind of with a lack of really cheap, good defensive options, I think Seamus Casey sticks out for us in the projections, and a guy that we're going to be over the field on tonight, especially if he's just 1% owned. Artem Zub is just a shot blocking machine. So if you looking for a guy to get that shot block bonus at $3,500, he's a pretty good bet tonight. Joel Edmondson continues to be a strong value option. Wasn't great the other night, but $3K. I'll definitely be getting back to him. I've been playing Dylan Sandberg a ton recently. I didn't play him the other night because his price skyrocketed to like 4,500. It's back down to 38. Feel like pretty comfortable getting back to him again tonight. Sam Girard projected to be one of the highest owned defensemen on the slate at $3,400. He doesn't correlate great with Colorado 1. They they basically play exclusively with Taves and Makar, but decent price tag for a guy that's going to play 20 plus minutes tonight. Brett Pesce, kind of the exact same boat as Sammy G. Really cheap options. As I mentioned, there's not a whole lot outside of Seamus Casey to get all that excited about. Jordan Spence, just not playing enough now with 7 defensemen. Brant Clark's playing like 8 minutes a night, not really enough there. I think one guy that, might intrigue me a little bit tonight is Oliver Shillington. He's going to move up and to take Sam Malinsky's spot on that second pair with Sam Girard. So I do think there's the potential for Shillington to get up to like 20 minutes ish tonight. Maybe not quite that high, but he's going to probably see a lot more than the 13 minutes he's kind of used to seeing at $2,700. I don't think it's, the worst play at like literally 0% ownership, but who's sticking out to you, Zach?
Interesting shout on Shillington there. 3 games played against the Devils in his career, 2 assists. That's kind of random.
Super.
So there you go. Seamus Casey, he looks great tonight. $2,700. That's enough of a salary dip nowadays with his new pricing system to really open some things up for you in terms of what you can do with your lineup. So a lot of interest in him. A lot of interest in Artem Zub. The shot block god tonight, 7.3 blocks per hour over his last 20 games. That's tied for the most of anybody on this slate here. So don't mind going that route. I mentioned earlier, probably going to be really heavy on Sanderson and Shabbat. I think they both look like excellent options here tonight. Philip Hronik looks okay. Neil Pionk at $4,200.
I love Pionk. I forgot to mention him. I absolutely love Pionk. Might be my favorite D play of the night.
Yeah, he looks great tonight. Him and Casey are probably the guys I'm going to be heaviest on. Philip Hronik, he also looks like he's in an okay enough spot tonight.
Let's get to the goalies. As is always the case here on these smaller slates, it's a little bit more difficult to really, hone in on a couple goalies because you're probably building a lot of funky lineups. But Connor Hellebuyck grades out the best. He's going to be the highest owned tonight. He's insanely good. He's only 8K. He's got a great matchup against an Ottawa Senators team that is super banged up. So love Connor Hellebuyck tonight, obviously. And then David Riddick, $7,800. He's got the highest implied win percentage tonight. We just talked about how good his home road splits are. He's super good in Los Angeles. The Canucks just do not score goals at all. So probably not going to see a ton of volume, but grades out really well. Those two probably my 2 favorites. I don't mind Mackenzie Blackwood as the most expensive goalie. A bit of a tougher matchup, but might see a little bit more volume. I think Jake Allen is easily, last night we talked about, if you're going dumpster diving, Sam Montembeault stood out as a guy. He ended up posting a shutout, which was great. Jake Allen tonight, though, man, he could be the real chalk buster. He's been pretty solid for the Devils. At times, we've seen the Avs struggle a little bit to score goals this season. So, I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibility that the that the Devils could win this game. In their last few games since coming out of the break, they lost 2-1 in Nashville and 3-1 in St. Louis. So it's been a bit of a struggle bus coming out of the break here for the Avs. And at $7,200 with as much chalk as coming in on Colorado 1, Allen looks like a great leverage play tonight. And if the Avs continue to struggle to score, wouldn't be stunning whatsoever if New Jersey wins this game 3-1 and Jake Allen's kind of the optimal goalie and just an absolute leverage smash. So, honestly, I'll probably get to pretty much every goalie on this slate outside of Allmark. I think Lankinen's been great. I think that, I think the Kings or the Canucks could win this game 2-1 or something like that. And Lankinen could be viable tonight. Like, he's just been so good, earned a big extension. I just want to pull up Lankinen's recent numbers because they've been just through the roof good. So his last 5 games specifically, 3-1-1 with a .932 save percentage. He's been just dynamite. You take a look at the team numbers here. I mean, they've given up just 1.32 goals against per 60 at 5v5, which is insane. 95 save percentage as a team. They've been unbelievable. 91 save percentage, 912 save percentage on the penalty kill. It's been great. So, I talked a lot about pretty much everybody. Zach, who sticks out to you?
Yeah, don't have a whole ton to add beyond what you said. The interesting thing about Jake Allen, if you look at his career as a whole going up against Colorado, 23 games played, 10 wins, 2 shutouts, 2.5 goals against average, and a .918 save percentage. His last 5 games, however, have not been great. Mind you, 4 of these came with the Montreal Canadiens. The one came earlier this year when he was with the Devils. 1-4 in those games, 3.9 goals against average, and an .880 save percentage. Given up 3 or more goals in 4 of those 5 games played. So I don't disagree with you. Like, I think he's a good option here tonight. He's been really good so far this season. 909 save percentage on the year, 16.8 goals saved above expected. The problem is that he's only won 41% of his starts this year, 9 wins in 22 games played. So I don't know how much I'm going to get there, but I think I'm in agreement with you. Like, I'm probably going to be right around the ownership on most of these guys here tonight. I think I'll be a little heavier on David Riddick, a little lighter on Allmark, probably a little lighter on Lankinen as well.
Jake Allen, 4-4 with a 928 save percentage in his last 8 starts. Mackenzie Blackwood, since being traded by the Devils, has never given up a goal. Very small sample size. He's only faced 22 shots against them, but he's stopped all 22, so that's good. Okay, let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge and today's DFO head-to-head. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, all you got to do is drop a hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. Pick up some DFO swag. And new rules. If anybody scores a hat trick at all and nobody picks them, we will raffle off it to anybody who submitted a hat trick pick. So you kind of got like a double chance here to get a hat trick pick winner. Had a couple guys sitting on 2 goals last night, no hatties. I won yesterday's DFO head-to-head, so I'm going to go first, and my hat trick pick is Elias Pettersson.
That is absolutely hilarious. I'm going to go off the board here as well. I'm going to go with Quinton Byfield. I think he looks to be in a great spot here tonight. Looks like a really solid pivot option.
Okay, let's get to today's DFO head-to-head. I mentioned at the start, I really like Winnipeg too tonight. I think that they're in an interesting spot. They looked really good the other night. I think that this Ottawa team's super banged up. So I went with the full Winnipeg 2-stack. I absolutely love the correlation you get with Neil Pionk at $4,200. As I mentioned, one of my favorite defensemen there. And then I went with McKinnon and Netchas. Obviously, really like that spot for the Avs top line. David Riddick between the pipes. Didn't leave me with a lot of money left over. Seamus Casey at $2,700 is obviously a really nice value on the blue line tonight. And then Stefan Nation, as I mentioned, I don't love the matchup for the Devils, but I think that second line's in the best spot. He's on the top power play unit as well, $4,100. He's had some big games so far this season. So as my last man in, he felt fine. How about you, Zach?
Nice. Yeah, got a little weird with my lineup here tonight. I probably built like 6 or 7 different renditions before I kind of settled, I suppose, on this one here. I like LA too. I like Kevin Fiala. I like Alex Laferriere. I think they're solid options here tonight. I went a little bit different here with some of these other things that I did with his lineup. A little Winnipeg 3 mini stack with Adam Lowry and Nino Niederreiter. We got Nathan McKinnon up there as a one-off at $8,500. And then 3 defensemen I went with tonight. Seamus Casey looks like just a great value play, so put him in the flex spot. Sanderson and Chabot, really like them here on this slate tonight too. They should, between the two of them, pretty much play the entirety of the game here. And then David Rittich in the crease.
That is going to do it for this edition of the DFO DFS report. Again, shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of a premium at RotoGrinders, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. While you're there, smash that like button. You can also click the link to join the DFO DFS Discord community that's growing every single day. We'll drop all of the late-breaking news and keep you up to date. We obviously will provide the Ottawa Senators lines here in warm-ups in just over an hour's time. So best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Until tomorrow, cheers.
Cheers.